Hello everybody, welcome to Model Studios How-To series. This is the first video I'll be making for this series and I plan on making more in the future. Today's topic is pretty simple to most and is the basics and fundamentals of role-playing. Let's begin, yeah? Role-playing could seem very scary to newcomers, especially when there are actually rules on how to. In this video, I should be able to cover not only our game, Operation Market Garden, I should also be covering other Roblox roleplay games. Different roleplay games come with different rules, so not everything I state in this video will be up to your community standards. First of all, you'll need to know some basic terminology. The list below is as follows. RP stands for roleplay. RPer stands for roleplayer, which is a person who is roleplaying. CRP stands for combat roleplay, which is basically what this game is about. PRP, or more commonly referred to as passive roleplay, is roleplay that does not involve combat. ERP stands for erotic roleplay, and this isn't covered in this video and does not exist in Operation Market Garden. IC stands for in character. This is when you are roleplaying. OOC stands for out of character. This is when you are not roleplaying. Calling shots is an out of character player simulating gunfire. PTK stands for permission to kill. This is usually a question and we'll cover this more later. PTSK stands for permission to server kill, and we'll go more on this later. PTC stands for permission to cripple, and this is not covered in this video. APTK stands for automatic permission to kill, which basically just means that permission to kill is off. That should be the basics. There are more terms, but for now that is all you really need to know. Being in character. Now that you know some terms, here's what you'll need when going in character. When going in character, you'll need to say this into the chat. You should try to develop a character before getting in character. You need to figure out things like your character's name, their traits, what they're a part of, and etc. A good starting character would be a character that is similar to you, and this is probably what most role players actually do. For example, if you're nice in real life, you should easily be able to have a character who is nice while role-playing. While you are in character, you can talk to other role players that are currently in character using quotation marks. You can ask questions, give statements, and all that funny stuff. For example, "Hey there, who's that? Watch out! How are you, Lieutenant?" These are all clearly written out and with proper grammar. You should always use proper grammar when speaking your character's language. When speaking your character's language, you do not have to do anything special, except for using quotation marks. However, when speaking a language that your character does not usually speak, such as when your character speaks to another character whose character does not speak your character's language, by default, you must use these markings. For example, which this is pretty useful, if I was an American wanting to speak to a German and speak German, I would have to say this: hello. You do not have to actually speak that language IRL. Your character should not be able to speak other languages other than their own unless your character has a background that makes sense for them to speak more than one language. When performing actions like jumping, shooting, or running, you'll need to refer to you and your action in the first or third person. For example, he'd jump, I'd jump. He'd aim, I'd aim. You do not use quotation marks when doing actions, just state your action. When another role player is trying to make action with you, you'll need to react. This usually isn't too hard. For example, if person 1 states something like he'd fire, and person 2 wants to react to this, / needs to react to this, they would say something like he'd fall down after being shot by blank. Just make sure you react to other players unless their action is unreasonable. Unreasonable actions can be things like anything that breaks the rules, is unfair, etc. Reacting to other role players when they need you to react is required. When using your gun and firing at other players, you need to make sure of two things. Is this role player in character? Is this role player a combatant? You do not shoot at out-of-character players, because they simply are just not role-playing. And you do not shoot at non-combatants. We'll cover this more in the next video. First, you must aim your gun. To do this, say something like, he'd aim at, and then describe what you're aiming at. Then you can fire. He'd fire. It's as simple as that. You can specify where if you'd like, but the player who was hit should be able to tell for themselves. For example, he'd fire into your, which stands for the other role player. Then you could specify things like chest, shoulder, or leg, or, any other place. You cannot aim for places such as the head or neck unless you have permission to kill, or if permission to kill is off. We'll cover this more later. Power playing is when a role player is being overpowered, such as shooting multiple targets and killing them all at once. Sometimes this makes sense, such as a machine gun mowing down a group of bunched up enemies, or if someone is role-playing as a mortar shell, or really anything that has logic behind it. However, some people will do things like aim and fire in short succession, which can be mean and not give you much of an opportunity to react. If you think a person is power playing, you can call a moderator and they'll look into the situation. Out of character. When you are OOC, you should not interfere with other role players or people who are in character. You are basically a ghost. You're just spectating. Here are a list of reasons why you would go out of character. To clarify who or what is going on. When scouting an area ahead that your character cannot see or is using a tool like binoculars to view. After dying or after your character is done roleplaying. You need to stay in character for as long as possible, but it is very common for players to have to go out of character. When entering the out of character state, you must say the following in chat. This shows other players that you are now not roleplaying. When you are speaking to others while OOC, use parentheses. For example, I could ask, what is going on? Or you could state something like, I shot you, react. Permission to kill. A lot of communities have what is known as PTK, or permission to kill. This rule is in place to prevent a role player from eliminating a large amount of role players in quick succession and to allow other role players a chance at living. If you wish to kill another player directly, such as aiming for the head or fatal part of body, you must ask them, OOCly, for permission to kill. You can do this by starting with, he'd aim at head. Then you can state your question, which would be, in this case, permission to kill. If the player says yes, then you may fire. For example, he'd fire at head, killing them. If the player says no, they must provide a valid reason why, such as they are out of character, they are a non-combatant, or they think you are power playing. We'll go over this more later. And there are more situations like this, obviously. If you think their reason for saying no to a permission to kill request is invalid, you can run the help command or your community's equivalent to call a moderator over. They will assess the situation and move on. If they say no and you do not want to go through moderation trouble, you can just ignore them for now, or you can aim at a non-fatal part of their body. You can only shoot at another person's non-fatal part of their body if it does not go against the rules. For example, shooting a non-combatant is not allowed. PTSK stands for permission to server kill and is basically permission to kill. However, the character's death only applies to the current server. This means that if you react to a permission to server kill request, then your character will die. But if you join another server, you can continue to roleplay as that character in that other server. APTK, which stands for automatic permission to kill, just means that permission to kill is off. And if automatic permission to kill is ever on, it'll only be for events when the host specifically says that it is on. Every other time, APTK is off and PTK is on. If you have any questions, make sure to DM me on Discord or any other staff member and we'll answer you. If you're from another community that is not Model Studios, I'm sure if you post questions to your community staff members, they will answer you and be happy to tell you how to roleplay. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the front lines.